Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're jumping straight in and decoding the hidden psychological drivers of wealth and scarcity. I mean, have you ever wondered why money feels so deeply emotional, even when the underlying math is honestly incredibly simple? Well, we're breaking down the behavioral finance, the neuroscience, and the psychology of money to reveal what's actually driving your spending, your saving, and that endless, exhausting desire to just keep up.
Let's get real for a second. You finally snagged that promotion, you hit a massive salary milestone, maybe you jump from $50,000 to $100,000 a year, or even way up to $500,000. You celebrate, right? You feel like you've completely made it. But fast forward 6 months, and you're looking at your bank account feeling exactly as financially strained and stressed out as you did before. So why on earth does earning more money somehow make you feel poorer? It's not a mathematical error. It's actually a psychological one.
Okay, let's dive right into this with Section 1, the lifestyle inflation trap.
See, we all kind of operate under this illusion that a higher income automatically means immediate wealth. But here are the silent killers of that salary raise. You upgrade your streaming subscriptions to ad-free because, well, you deserve it, right? You start relying way more on convenience dining and delivery because you're working harder. You justify these daily micro-splurges like that $8 artisanal coffee as a little reward. And suddenly, you're taking on debt-fueled weekend escapes just to match what your new peers are doing. These innocent little habits drain your money so incredibly fast that your new wealth literally never even has a chance to unpack its bags.
To really prove that wealth is entirely behavioral, just look at this number, $1 million. We all think $1 million would make our financial problems magically vanish, but stark reality, backed by behavioral finance, shows us that someone can literally inherit $1 million today and go completely broke in exactly 3 years. No way, right? But it's true. Because if you don't upgrade your financial psychology when you upgrade your bank account, that money is absolutely going to disappear.
Moving right along to Section 2, the psychology of keeping up.
Enter the hedonic treadmill. This is the psychological mechanism that ensures your desires rise in perfect, synchronized tandem with your paycheck. You get a raise, your brain gets this awesome hit of dopamine, and you upgrade your life. But here's the catch. We humans are incredibly adaptable. So, very quickly, that luxury car or that bigger house just becomes your new normal. Your baseline happiness totally resets. To chase that next dopamine hit, you have to spend even more. So you're running faster and faster on the treadmill, but you are staying in the exact same financial spot.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how emotional spending loves to mask itself as simple math. We use these sneaky cognitive tricks like mental accounting, which is basically categorizing money differently based on where it came from, to justify terrible decisions. We also fall victim to loss aversion. That's when we fear losing our current upgraded lifestyle so much that we completely refuse to cut back, even when we're drowning in debt. Basically, we make these purely emotional choices, and then we build elaborate mathematical spreadsheets just to justify them to ourselves.
Let's shift gears and see how this builds in Section 3, income versus true wealth. Relying on a payslip from a corporate job is actually a really fragile illusion of wealth. You are just trading your time for heavily taxed dollars. True wealth, on the other hand, is built on ownership. It's all about accumulating assets that generate tax-free wealth and harnessing the incredible power of compounding. When you rely solely on a paycheck, I don't care how large it is, you are always just one corporate restructuring away from zero.
To make these abstract levels of wealth a bit more concrete, try this Sunday litmus test from our sources. It's brilliant. How you spend your Sunday actually reveals your exact rung on the wealth ladder. If you're broke, Sunday is spent stressing over Monday's bills. Middle class, you're probably spending Sunday on weekend escapes, caught right in that inflation trap. High-earning corporate climbers are usually spending their Sundays exhausted, just catching up on work. But true wealth? Your Sunday is spent resting, or maybe quietly reviewing the assets that are working hard for you so you don't have to.
Which brings us to Section 4, the compounding interest threshold. So the crucial point here is this absolute mathematical dividing line between the truly wealthy and the treadmill runners, the minimum compounding threshold. See, compounding interest has a minimum barrier to entry to actually change your life. This is that specific tipping point where your invested capital generates returns that mathematically outpace both your lifestyle inflation and normal economic inflation. And the stark reality? Most people live their entire lives trapped right below this hidden threshold.
And this brilliantly illustrates exactly what happens. Look at that below threshold column. Your wealth growth is essentially flat. Sure, you're saving, but inflation and lifestyle creep eat absolutely all the gains, leaving you totally stuck. But then look at the above threshold bar. That shows the exponential explosion that happens when you finally push past that line. At that point, your money starts making way more money than your day job does.
Which leads us to a pretty harsh truth. Your safe, traditional savings account might secretly be making you poorer. Traditional savings rates almost never outpace real inflation. So if you just hoard cash in a standard account, your purchasing power is quite literally bleeding out. Playing it entirely safe is mathematically dangerous because it guarantees you will never, ever cross that compounding threshold.
All right, let's look at solutions in Section 5, Breaking the Broke Cycle.
So how do we actually fix this? Well, we can learn a massive psychological lesson from Gen X money habits, specifically a strategy called defensive pessimism. They tend to trust absolutely nothing and always prepare for worst-case financial scenarios. It sounds like a bad thing, right? Actually, scratch that. It's a strategic superpower. This mindset drives hyper-vigilant saving, a deep suspicion of corporate job security, and a really powerful drive to stockpile emergency cash.
To actually break this cycle, you need to follow these 3 steps. Step 1. Adopt that defensive pessimism to stockpile emergency cash so you aren't forced into bad debt the second a crisis hits. Step 2. Manage your debt using real math. I know, popular advice obsesses over early debt payoff, but if you relentlessly pay down low-interest debt at the expense of investing, you are mathematically hindering yourself from reaching that compounding threshold. And step 3, invest hard. Funnel absolutely everything you can into growth assets until you finally cross that magical line. I want to leave you with one final provocative thought today. Every single time you get a raise, every time you feel that familiar urge to upgrade your lifestyle, you need to ask yourself, are you building an empire or are you just funding a much more expensive treadmill? The math is simple, folks, but the psychology is hard. Master your mind and the wealth will absolutely follow. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.